I mean, what really is the actual point now? I mean, there's loads of people still getting arrested. All these like people who are going on about Palestine, which I'm not too interested in, but some of them are getting arrested when they shouldn't because it's a parliamentary cause, and the government have mislabeled it, just like with the Public Order Act, right? And the police are breaking the law. We need to raise awareness of this so we can put a stop to it, right? Now, there are some channels which could really help, like that, Resistance GB and Graham Moore and all these channels in that circle who are refusing to actually do anything. They won't actually mention it or raise the issues. They've just started talking about privileges a little bit, right? But there's lots of interesting things that I'm sure that if they understood them and knew them, if they would let us teach us them, they would like the subject and understand it, because a lot of them seem to get put off by the legal side of it, but it's not boring at all. These are the rights that you're using when you go out and protesting and things like that, all to do with police arrests or, using banners and all these type of things that they enjoy engaging in and going out and doing. And this is all law around it, but what Parliament have been doing to lie to us and, deceive us, this is like going through it. And it's actually hard for me because I've actually put off reading some of these committee reports. I've been putting it off for at least a month now, right? And I've done a lot of really good progress in writing, and I've got some more notes that I have read, and I've got ready to put together and add to the writing that I've already done, which is substantial. But these are just the last reports that I've got to go through, and there's probably maybe 10, 20 or so documents to read, but some of them are longish. And the modern, I really, really enjoy reading the older ones, right? Because they don't lie as much, and it proves that the modern members are lying. And when the modern members are really bad at lying, they're terrible at it. It's so bad that they're actually, they're blatantly lying when they know they are lying and misleading us, and they're pretending that they're helping us and smiling and going, oh yeah, just to help the public, to help you, while as they're saying that, they're completely disrespecting us and in contempt. And then they're even disputing over what the word contempt means, when that what contempt is what they're doing to us, right? They despise us, and it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like, a Halloween trick or treat. It's like a trick or treat thing. It's like, it's like taking kids' sweets off. I'm not saying sweets are good for you, but this is just an example, right? It's like going to a load of kids and taking the sweets off them, and then saying, oh yeah, I'm trying to help kids, by giving them some treats, right? And they're just taking them off them, right? And then saying, oh yeah, it's like, oh, was that a trick or a treat, Oh, a trick, right? It literally is a trick or treat mission. It's like, oh, take the candy, give me your sweet, give me all your sweets, right? You can't have those, and then say, oh, well, would you like some sweets? Because we're trying to help kids get sweets, right? Was that a trick or is it a treat, right? It literally is trick. It's trick. Now, these people here, right? These people are con artists. They're complete and utter con artists. And one of the ladies, there's one lady, she's a member of the House of Lords now, and I'm not listing the Lords because I'm concentrating on the House of Commons people. Joe Benton, right? Patrick Cormack, this guy. Some of these people are dead now as well, deceased. Bill Mitchie, Dr. Alan Williams, Paul Tyler, and now we've got Ann Taylor, now Baroness Taylor of Bolton. These people, they are, look, the only way to explain this is this, right? the police like to catch criminals, but criminals get caught because they're actually not that intelligent. You know, the criminals that get caught are because they're thick, right? And police aren't actually very good at getting criminals who are geniuses, because really all the criminals who are geniuses are all these people who've been robbing us and making billions out of us. They're the real criminals, right? We get away with it, right? And, you know, like COVID stuff and all that, right? These people, right, they are criminals. They're criminals. They'll tell a lie, right? They'll blatantly lie to mislead you, right? And then when you've read their lie, the first thing that pops into your head, right? You think of something that could prove that they're lying. And then as you get to the next paragraph, then it's like, oh, here it is. Oh, look, the piece of evidence I was just thinking about to prove their lie. And then they're like pointing at it, going, hey, look at this, with all the arrows pointing at it. When it's surprise, right? It's like saying, oh, no such thing as a colour red exists, right? And then you open a box and, oh, look, there's a red bow. Look, a red bow, everyone a red bow. And you're just like, what the actual fuck are you doing, right? It's like, what the actual fuck are they doing? I mean, it's like, oh, they're like, oh, privilege has never been used for criminal charges. Well, that's funny. What's the Parliamentary Papers Act 1844, which says, like, it protects from criminal and civil charges. Now, they even said that the Parliamentary Papers Act is privilege, an absolute privilege, right? When it's not, it's instead of, and it's meant to be like it, right? Now, firstly, the Claim of Right Act 1689 states that you can't use protections to get out of civil debt, right? You can't use protections to prevent you from having to pay for civil debt. That is why they put an end to all, House of Lords servants using privilege to get out of debt. But it was mainly the main principle is a postponement, right? Postponement anyway, not permanent endless protection. And the way they ended up working it out was by waiting until the end of sessions, if it wasn't that serious, or doing it in between the parliaments, which is a postponement, not protection, right? But then they ended up completely getting rid of arrest on messy criminal process for everyone, not just privileged people, right? Now, so it hasn't really been used for civil debt anyway. So what have we got left? Well, you haven't got really anything left in that other than criminal, right? So what's the point in it? It's like, and actually Sir Malcolm Jack said this, like, what's the point in a privilege, right? If you have got if you have, no privilege is no privilege at all, right? So what's left of it? It's almost kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes. Either there is something or there isn't. Now, in the Bankruptcy Act, another really brilliant piece of legislation, because it says in this act you can't use privilege for civil or criminal protection in the act. So you must be able to use it for criminal protection, like in another act, or where in one it says you can't use it. Now, these people, they're trying to be clever, and they're trying to mislead you, right? And they're trying to cover something up and mislead you, and then they're pointing at it, and what they're actually doing is they're making an absolute, utter and total, complete massacre and mess of it. All they're actually doing, it's like a lot of puppy dogs in mud, right? Just getting wet and covered in mud, and they're just splashing it around. It's literally like dogs playing in mud, right? Or kids playing in mud, making mud pies and just getting dirty. It's like digging your own hole. They're just digging their own hole. They're there with this information, and literally they're just digging themselves an hole in the floor, because they're like completely and utterly bullshitting. And then the thing they're just bullshitting about, then they get it out. And they're like, hey, look at this. I just lied about that. What do you think to that? And then you're like, well, what what the actual fuck are you even doing with this report? It's just absolutely disgraceful. There's no dignity in it, because if anyone gets hold of that report who has got any IQ and intelligence at all, it's absolute and complete utter bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. It is a bullshit. And then they're going on about respect and contempt, right? They're taking away, they're saying you haven't got any rights, right? You haven't got any rights. They don't amount to anything, right? They're nothing. And then at the end they'll go, yeah, we're trying to stand up for your rights and make things better for you. No, you aren't trying to stand up for us rights and make things better for us. You just writ them off and said that they're nothing. There's nothing to them. They're worthless. And then you just said, oh, yeah, we're trying to make, stand up for your rights. This is when you get into the area of, oh, they cut your nose off to spite your face or stab you in the back. These people are utter deception and they are contempt. So we don't know whether we need to make the definition of contempt statutory. Look in the dictionary. All you have to do is look in the Samuel Johnson dictionary and the Webster's dictionary. It explicitly tells you what contempt is, right? And it actually kind of like is like, being spiteful to people, which the report is contemptuous. The irony in what they're doing, right, is that they are holding us, the public, they are committing a contempt against the general public, a disgraceful, utter contempt with a painted face over it, a smile, when behind it, it is utter deception. And they know they're deceiving, but they've done the worst possible ever job at lying. And this is what the type of criminals do the police catch, because they're incompetent. It's incompetence. Now, I don't want to actually have to read these reports, because every single paragraph that I'm going through, there's some lie in it or error, right? And I've been putting off reading these committee reports that I've got to read for over a month now. And I've just started reading this one, and it'll take me forever to go through it, because every single paragraph I have to stop. I'm like, oh my God, disgraceful. And I got to copy the paragraph and make some comment about it. And before I get on to the next paragraph, right? And I'm literally going through the whole thing. Never mind a needle in a haystack. It's got pins and needles in the whole thing all the way through. And I don't want to to be honest, I really don't want to have to read them, because it is upsetting, frustrating, and it's very difficult to read with stressfully and emotionally, right? Because it's just full of errors and lies. Now, the older ones are quite educational. I really enjoy reading the older ones, like the 1832 and the 1944 ones. They're brilliant. I thoroughly enjoy them, and it's like so enlightening when you actually learn something and they teach you something, and they're actually helping you to prove that these people are criminals, that these modern MPs who have got absolutely no dignity or respect, they're not worthy of these titles, right and honourable. I don't know how they managed to get elected. I don't know how they go into Parliament. They're not people who were educated from a good, high level of intelligence and a good, strong education, who know about Parliament and have an interest in it before they get elected. They stand for the colours of these parties, and it's literally, if you put the red, it's like, Butlins, if you put the red shirt on, you're in. If you put the Labour jacket on, the colour gets you voted, the football shirt gets you on the team, right? And the person doesn't have to have really any, true, competence. Now, there are some professionals in Parliament, oh, I'm a doctor, right? Well, that's good if someone's, having a heart attack, right? We probably might need you. But when it comes to this, I'm sorry, but it doesn't cut the mustard, right? And you're lying, right? I think that one of these was meant to be a historian, but he definitely wasn't a lawyer. But then there's some lawyers giving evidence. And then you've got your clerks of Parliament, like, you've got this... Eve Samson, who's been there since the late 80s, early 90s or whatever, and, she definitely has not stood up for the Constitution how she should have done, right? It's actually, the situation's terrible. We need a convention parliament. We need to general election, and we need something like they did in 1688. We need to call a parliament that is not there to make and change laws or pursue a manifesto agenda of a party. It's not going to be following any of these, digital ID agendas, Tony Blair, all these things around the world that they're trying to do, digital agendas, all these things. It's not actually going to... We need to call a parliament that is there to correct errors and get Parliament straight. It's not allowed to, it's not allowed to do anything except correct laws and take reports and complaints for the public about incompatibilities and errors in law, like a lot of things that Tony Blair has done, for example, like, setting the judges against their oath and, creating the Senate when, it clearly is creating new privileges. All these things, and stripping down Magna Carta and the Constitution, right? We need to have a parliament that actually, is not going to engage in any, wars or foreign affairs or all this, all these different things. Just stop the making of new laws. Do not make any. It's only there to correct inconsistencies, errors and mistakes and lies of past committees so we can get the truth. The Parliament of truth, the Parliament of honesty, right? And it can take and receive complaints and petitions about errors, right, in the law and inconsistencies, errors and incompatibilities. And then when we've corrected everything and got everything right and we're working properly, then we need to look at getting an honest Parliament in, who's going to act on behalf of the people and not pursue any Bill Gates agendas or foreign parties or bodies or, Sadiq Khan's, foreign unions and committees of these, foreign interests that want to try and, implement, global agendas or whatever. And then when we've got some honest MPs in and the law is correct and right, then we can, start asking the people what direction they want to go in and what laws we should be making and what direction the country should be going in. It needs to be some kind of convention parliament to repair the damage. So we can't carry on like this because it's just pure lies. And then all the advertising for the elections, getting elected. In fact, for the convention parliament, there should be a rule where you've got to have certain qualifications to get elected, or you can't. None of the main parties are allowed. It's got to be independent, almost kind of a little bit like an independent investigation or an independent tribunal, but for the whole parliament. Like it could be called the independent parliament, but the whole parliament needs to have intelligent professionals who are honest and people. People need to, they need to understand, right, I need to vote for someone who's got qualifications, who's competent, who knows what they're doing, not just magically, put a jacket on and then they magically get elected and then just, do what Keir Starmer says or whatever, right? They need to be elected on their competence, trustworthiness, honesty and intellectual capacity and ability to sort these problems out. And we need people to come forward and stand like, professors or teachers, or people who are at university, or people who have got qualifications, or just people who are known to be honest and trustworthy. That's what we really need. Some kind of convention parliament, and not be continuing with this ridiculous direction which the most unpopular Prime Minister in the history of England is taking us in against the will of the people, just because a few elite maniacs are wanting to try and, control the country themselves, because they own the planet, like Bill Gates or Tony Blair. You're not the Prime Minister. Tony Blair's not the Prime Minister of England anymore, right? And he's not an elected MP. So why is he scrambling around? I've got to sort my policies out to get my MPs under control, right? Excuse me, Tony, right? You're worth one vote in a ballot box, right? That's what you're worth, one vote. If you want to do a petition, do it. If you've got a load of money to help promote it and, finance private bills, then you do that, get lobbying. But, right, he's trying to come up with all these policies, as if he's a lawmaker. Oh no, it's Tony, beyond leaders. I've got to get, what's Keir Starmer and this government doing? I have to make some new policies to get these MPs under control under the Tony Blair government. The under Spectre under Tony Blair. Oh, Tony Blair, all my Spectre agents have gone out of control. I have to implement some new policies so I can get them to, what's this like Whipmaster or something? There's a whip beyond whip. Never mind leaders beyond leaders, whips beyond whips. Who does Tony Blair think he is? Some kind of MP whip or something? This is a thing. So, these committee reports, they're really hard work, and I wanted to get them all done out of the way so I could finish adding everything into my written evidence and try and get it finished. And then I'm just waiting there's some things that I can't finish yet because I'm moving the parliamentary archives and they haven't finished moving them yet. It's not accessible. And there's some other things that have been difficult to get access to, and I'm just on with it now, kind of messing around trying to get hold of it, like a lot of the actual petitions themselves that we've got a good evidence in. But, I've got a main part of representation that's solid by itself, but it could be better, and I want to try and make it as best as I can. But at this point, with the knowledge that I've got already, with what I already know up to now, when I'm going through these privilege committee reports, it's just so difficult reading, and not in technicality, just in the lies and deceptions, and it's not, they're not telling the truth. They're trying to deceive and mislead, and then after they'll just come out with a fantastical porky, and it's just the fact. What are they? It's like do you know what? It's like a dog. Like a dog, does a poop, and then it's like, look, who's done? It's like, who farted? It's like, it's like, it's like who? Okay, come on then, who just farted? It's like, who's just done a doggy poo, right? So they do the doggy poo on you in these reports, and then it's like, and then they'll all just crowd around the poop and go, look, a poop like that. Who smelled it, dealt it? Who did it? This is what they're doing in these reports, and this is not my preferred style and tone of speaking. These aren't the words I prefer to use, right? All these expressions or examples or terms, I'm not the type of person who goes into a shop and buys a pretend poo, right? I don't like it. I don't like using the poo smiley, right? But there's no other way to describe this, right? These people, it's like having a lot of puppies, right? And then one of them they'll shit on the floor, right? And then they'll all just go, and then they'll all just stand around and go, oh, look, a poop. Who did that? Who did that? There's a poops here, everyone. Rup, rup, rup. And even shout, look, come here, look. We just pooped on the floor. It was which one of you were it? But then, so then they all just tread on it. They all walk around in it for the rest of the fucking report, right? All over the whole thing, and like fucking dirty doggy paw prints all over the fucking report. Whoever smelled it dealt it. This is the thing, right? But that's what they do. They go, look, a poop. One of us is shit there. Look at that. Look, that's the shit. Look, one of us is shit there. Look, there it is. Look there. Look, there it is. Your shit there. Look, you're pointing it out. Look, there's the shit that we just did. The bullshit. Look at that. It's absolute, pure, utter, disgraceful behaviour. These committee reports cannot be valid. They cannot be valid. They are in the most utter contempt against the public that you could have these people, right? Now, this Parliament cannot continue at this standard of engagement. Now, in 1997 to 1999, people were just getting on with their lives, right? You know, I don't know if they hadn't actually done the e-petitions website online at that point. I mean, there wasn't a war on. There wasn't a national emergency. People did campaigns, Greenpeace and, you know, Newbury Bypass and that lot, but they weren't that into it in the right side other than just like, you know, casual protesting, I don't think. Now, there were some university professors who should have known better. Even Carl Witt, when he writes his book, he's musing over Parliament's lies, basically inconsistencies. He's like, you know, gesturing towards it, you know, it's like, oh, you know, but he's just like being straight about it and saying, something strange going on here, not quite right, you know, but like, you know, we'll move on. And this is it. But it's actually got even worse now, to a terrible state. Now, most people were going about their lives, right? Now, in 1997, 1998, 99, you would have really needed to seek out this material, you know, engaging in parliamentary. Who in that? I'd love to know, right? In 1997, who participated in parliamentary consultations? You know, who participated? University professors, you know, university professors, teachers. Maybe. Who even knew about them? Who even followed Parliament, you know? Everyone's watching, you know, Top of the Pops, right? Everyone's watching Top of the Pops. There's no, all the internet websites like forums, you know, rowing clubs and that. Everyone's doing their own stuff, right? You've got to have been an academic, someone like Professor Tim Wilson, you know, maybe the television, the BBC, or at least the BBC political correspondents would know about it. You know, maybe a few members of the BBC. Who even knew they were doing parliamentary consultations on, you know, things in 1997, right? Not average Joe on the street. And it wasn't like Big Brother Watch now, where they've got 250,000 followers, you know, fill in this form, contact your MP, here's the template, sign the petition, etc. Turn up at the demos. You know, how many demos are there going on now, right? You know, the police are arresting people illegally. It wasn't anything like that. I know it was like, you know, Newbury Bypass or Swampy or, you know, a bit of Greenpeace here and there. You know, some people are into protests, but I don't think that they quite made the... Well, there'll have been some, you know, university people, but then they call these university people to help them as professional witnesses. Obviously, the ones who are on their side who are going to, help cover up the lie or help contribute to the lie, right? And remember, you know, you got all kinds of university courses. What is a biology professor going to have to say about, parliamentary privilege? Probably not a lot, right? Unless he wants to be an MP. You know, in the 17 and 1800s, there was a little bit more interest in it. You know, gentlemen used to go into reading rooms, into libraries, and you open the newspaper. They had the parliamentary intelligence section. Okay, right? People who read the newspaper, right? These Sunday morning gentlemen who are really into the newspaper, the elite in London, people who knew about things, you know, business people in London, business people who read the newspaper, but they're only going to read what they read in the newspaper, right? Maybe the newspaper, maybe if you buy the Daily Mail or the Telegraph, right, religiously, those type of people. Now, my mate used to get the newspaper and knock around with the newspaper, you know, when he was sat in the pub having a pint at the bar and playing on bandits and, you know, I'm getting the newspaper, keep up with what's going on, right? But there are different types of newspaper, right? You know, Financial Times. Maybe they might have knocked out in the Financial Times, you know, Boris Johnson's pals, you know, columnists, right, or the Spectator or whatever. Oh, the Parliament are having a consultation on, the joining or leaving the EU. Okay, some people are into politics, right? Some people were into politics, but even those people who are into politics, right? Oh yeah, you know, we Labour voters aren't happy about the tax on biscuits or whatever, or Labour voters aren't happy about, you know, income tax going up and down. You know, people who aren't children, people who are aware of what's happening to their finances, but not things like these parliamentary privileges reports. They weren't knocking these out, and people, you know, well, the written evidence, I'd like to see who responded to it. I'd like to see the list of members of the public who responded to it and the numbers of people who are responding to them. Remember, generally petitions to Parliament were in the tens of thousands, and then in the after in the 20th century, 21st, they dropped down to 80 a year or 60 a year or 120 a year. Very small numbers for a nation, and then suddenly it wasn't until Tony Blair reinvigorated it, when really his real objective was, I'm doing you a favour, like Sergey Brin, look, there's all this internet stuff, I'm doing you a favour, right? But then his ulterior motive is to hack into your phone and get control of it and get all your data off you, right? Sergey Brin and Tony Blair are like two peas in a pod. Tony Blair, in a bid to toy around with petitioning and modernise, but we took it out of the House of Commons and really he was seeking to sever it from the proper parliamentary process and trying to make it into something detached, which now it's been treated as by the modern e-petitions team are completely and totally undermining it, and even the policies don't match with standing orders. But I mean that's now a symptom of this here, of this absolute, complete and total utter contempt against the public. It's utter contempt against the public, and now we've got to a situation where the social media kicked in, and they all broke the law on the social media. Nigel Farage with his talking pints, completely, totally privately funded, rocketed him through the roof, particularly on social media where it's free and people could share it, and GB News was for free, not on the television, like on the free platforms, right? But the free platforms are where it's at. Complete and total. Who's going to... And then, the fact that no one can afford to challenge these elections, or even very few people know about the ability to challenge them, it's at the misbehaviour has exploded now. We're actually in it's all contempt, because contempt means, in law, in the word contempt means basically to act not very nice. In fact, it's meant to be the most severe expression of not holding very nice regard to people. Although even John Pym said even the nastiest of people can participate in Parliament, right? But they're holding us in contempt. They don't really like us, and they don't like us having rights, but they're, in a way, when you've got people, selling really unhealthy food, and they know that it's not good for you, but they pretend that it is, and they still sell you it, and it tastes really nice. You like filling you full of, literally filling you full of, kebab and chips or whatever when you're enjoying eating it, but it's really not helping you and making you unhealthy. That's the same type of contempt, really. An irresponsibility, and that's what they're doing in here. They're trying to make out that they're doing you a favour or something good when they've just basically, ripped off your rights and constitution and totally undermined it and lied about it. But in law, contempt means not complying with the rules. It means disobedience to the rules and processes, right? Which is why you get done for contempt in court. Actually, swearing at the judge isn't necessarily breaking the rules or processes. That's an insult. I don't know why. That's why if you swear at a judge and then he's not happy and then he holds you in contempt, I don't necessarily think that is a contempt, because you're not necessarily disobeying the rules or proceedings of that court. Surely that's a crime in its own right, But, either way, the contempt that they've got for the rules of Parliament, they're on oath, they're meant to tell the truth, and they're not. They're actually just they're playing with truth and lies. It's like truth and lies, truth and dare, and seeing how much they can pervert the truth and bend it and twist it to dress it as they would like it to be, but it's completely not. You know, it's almost kind of like trying to get sentences and words and reorder them so it says something else, but it's still got the original words and letters in, so you know what he said before, right? So it's like, you do not have a right, right? But then it's like, you do not have a right, but like the word not clearly came from somewhere else and it's nothing to do with it, but you should actually just say you do have a right, but then they put this something in that's like, not even from the original piece or something. It's just like, it is wrong. They're wrong, right? They're wrong. But if they were that stupid and they didn't know they were wrong, and therefore they're innocent and it's just error, but they know, because when they do the poo-poo, then they're like, straight away. They pull it straight out. It's kind of like a little game. It's like on a game show. It's like, it's like some kind of children's schoolyard hopscotch game where it's like, truth or dare. It's like a game where you say, tell a lie and then show them the truth. That's it. It's like it's a game. It's a game, right? And you go, right, the game is, right, it's called tell a lie and then show the truth, right? So they tell a lie and then show the truth. But only an imbecile, only an idiot would play that game, right? Who are they trying to convince? Well, the stupidest game ever conceived, right, is called tell a lie, then show the truth, right? And then continue to, lie again when you just show them the truth, so your lie can't possibly be right? It's impossible. It's impossible for your lie to be correct when you just showed them the truth afterwards, right? So only a fool would do it. Only the most foolish person ever would attempt it, right? And this is what they do over the whole, and then they just tread it around over the whole thing. And then there's like these paw prints of bollocks all over the actual fucking report. And then it just ends up being just fucking spoiled. The whole thing is spoiled, right? And this is this guy here. This guy, look at his face. Look at him. You smell it, dealt it. Look at this guy. This guy can't keep a straight face. This guy here. This guy. And this guy. And her. Now Anne Taylor, Baroness Taylor Bolton, the Right Honourable, a member of the peerage of England, right? They're either either deluding themselves, right? Like they're lying, they're pretending to themselves. They're trying to convince themselves somehow, but I don't think they are. And it's just the type of it's the type of people they are. It's a horrible concoction of incompetence, lack of intelligence, and contempt, right? With some, moral sort of like, I'm just going to get elected to Parliament to put the country to rights. When how are we going to do that? Well, these, literally by holding the country in contempt, because, effectively, we aren't worthy of any rights or intelligence. That it's like a criminal. A criminal does not grant their victim the intelligence, right? And this is what the police go after, like, DC Carl Davis, in Runcorn Police, he likes to go after thick criminals, and then, when he beats them, around the same intelligence as him, and bit of a challenge, but, he gets them anyway, he catches them out, I caught you out, and then he proves he's a better man. But when someone comes along with a really intelligent investigation and catches some real criminals, the police can't take that on, because then DC Carl Davis is not the hero. Then you are the one who spotted it, and then you're the hero then, because you're the one who found it, because he wasn't competent enough to even fucking figure it out or know that people were breaking the law, right? So he ain't going to investigate that and prove it, because then all he's proving is that you're better than him, and he was stupid enough to not even fucking know that it was going on for that long, right? So that's why police won't take stuff on that we report in that's clever or intelligent, right? And all they want to do is illegal arrest protesters, because the police don't even know the law properly and they're being misled by Parliament, right? This needs to stop. We need to stop Keir Starmer, stop this Parliament now, and end these contemptuous lies, these committee reports, which are completely and utterly contemptuous. Andrew Bridgen had to have every single word that he said checked, right? These committee reports are erroneous and wrong, right? They all need correcting. They all need correcting and going through and setting right, because they are lying. They're lying. And it disrespects the entire government for years. What's Charles going to do about that? You know? He's not going to want to have a convention parliament to correct it all, because, you know, the disgrace is too great. You know, how could they have let this happen? This is the thing. We are absolutely screw-diddly scrambled, because Nigel Farage is not going to put his hand up and say, you know, oh, sorry about that talking pints cheating, what boost shot me, rocketed me through the roof, right? You know, but I'm doing okay now, I've got some steam behind me, and we're rolling. He's not. Farage is full steam ahead, right? Fuck the errors, fuck the cheating, like, you know, only forward, don't look back, right? And that is the railroad that Farage is on now. And this is the wreckage railroad. You know, the wreckage is done, and we're not going to correct it because, you know, he's like a freight train, is Farage. These committee reports need putting right and correcting, because they are severely misleading the public and holding us in contempt, and they can't possibly be correct, right? So obviously some of the stuff in them is right because it's referenced from other stuff, but they're trying to mislead people. And you know, the fact that there's no one else really interested in it or helping us with it is discouraging. You know, why, you know, Resistance GB and, you know, Graham Moore, and they're all concentrating on their own things. But if we don't help get the awareness raised for this, we're not going to get a resolution or a solution at all. And we need to get a resolution for this, because these rights need to be used and put into effect. Otherwise, it's the integrity of the government. There's no integrity. As the government continues to knock out these committee reports and call for evidence on other things like digital ID, how can they be taken seriously? How can the current government be taken seriously on anything like digital ID or, you know, paper mile or anything? They cannot be trusted to be competent with anything when they're working on these committee reports that are lies after lies after lies, year after year, getting worse as it goes on. The further you go back, it's more, there's more integrity to it. But there are still mistakes, like, you know, and why did they, you know, when they give the power of courts to hear election petitions, you know, they weren't free anymore, but all elections are meant to be free processes, and they weren't supposed to create any more privileges. But it seems to me that, you know, only Parliament was privileged to hear election petitions, and then they give the power to judges, so surely that was granting a new privilege to judges that they never had. There's many errors. We need to have some kind of convention parliament to correct past errors, and I don't mean scrap, you know, the Constitution. I'm talking about, like, you know, get it all in line and correct with how it is meant to be and should be. And, you know, people who've made grave errors, you know, like inventing the Senedd, which isn't that long ago. You only have to go back as far as Tony Blair, when the bricks really started to be piled on erroneously. And I think Tony Blair is an anarchist. Tony Blair is an anarchist, and I think that, you know, the New Statesman program was an expression and embodiment of Blair and that whole kind of you know, sort of generation, really. So, you know, something needs to be done, because we cannot continue like this anymore, you know. And if these people aren't called out now, then, you know, most of these people are deceased now anyway. Most of these people aren't around. Some of them still are. She is. I think this guy's still around. He was a Liberal Democrat. This guy could face. She's a member of the House of Lords, a peer, so she should answer for it. He should. I think he's gone now. I think that guy's gone as well. He's gone as well. And I'm not too sure about Joe Benton. So potentially, there are only potentially two of them, the Lib Dem and Baroness Taylor of Bolton. But, you know, it's scandalous. It's completely and utterly scandalous. And, it's just, this is what you get in the Lord Hanningfield case, you know, with Jeremy Johnson. And he got promoted to be a High Court judge after that 6-page paper, which was utterly wrong. Wrong. Completely ignored multiple acts of law, 6 pages, and he ignored the things that would, you know, prove him to be wrong, right? So, I mean, that's a product of that. That's another product of this, actually. It's another product of this type of thing that's going on.